Okay, thank you for joining us for this session of the On the Mark Financial Forum and Podcast. I am joined today by a good friend that we've been engaging with a lot and really want to bring his company and his approach to our network. So, Niles, great to see you. Thank you for joining us today, and we're excited to learn more and share Nestment with our community. So, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark. You guys have been an amazing partner of ours and very open and ripe for innovation. So I appreciate how you've embraced Nestment.
Absolutely. Well, us engaging with the tech sector is always fun because mortgages are known for being dull and boring, and you guys are really exciting. So you guys keep us on our toes, which is a good thing. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Nestment, what the mission is, what you guys do, and how it's growing?
Yeah, definitely. So Nestment, we're focused on helping millennial and Gen Z home buyers kind of hack the housing system through co-buy models, right? So just really making it much more about affordability versus the typical headlines, which feel like they're always about unaffordability, right? So we have three specific segments of users that we work with. The first is what we call shift. So we're coining this term second home is the first time buying. Actually, you Mark and NJ Lenders helped with one of our first shift groups themselves. But this is where you might have, a couple professionals in Brooklyn like Selena and Wade who maybe have saved up for a while, but still can't necessarily afford what they want in Brooklyn, but they really don't want to be left out of the housing market. And so I think we've all been kind of, told that this is the way you start. You start by buying your primary, but if you can't buy your primary in 10 or 15 years, you're losing out on the opportunity to invest in real estate. And so a lot of folks have now turned towards buying their second home first, right? The Snapper Fin guys were another great one. Some young Gen Z guys were like, I need to start, right? And worked with you on making sure that they got their first investment property together. In this case, with Selena Wade, it was a vacation rental where they still feel like homeowners. They get to enjoy and experience it, but can offset the expenses through short-term rentals. Our second group are what we call kind of primary and primary multifamily, right? So these are our folks who are trading in their rent for a primary home, but within a 2 to 4 unit building, right? So it still falls under conventional lending. There's the new Fannie program that allows you to put as little as 5% down. There's been the FHA programs in the past. But it offers a great opportunity to finally get into a place where you may work and live and actually be able to afford. Now you have an appreciating asset, you have a tax write-off, you have rental income helping pay for the expenses, and you're not renting anymore. It's going towards your own. So that's our second group, and we have a ton of folks doing that. Replacing kind of rent with a primary multifamily. And then the last is really around parent-child models. So we're looking at, we have a lot of folks who start to come to us and say, hey, my parent is trying to help me out. Should it be a gift? Should it be co-ownership? And helping them through that process. And I know we're looking at more innovative solutions eventually, like things like a pledged asset solution or things of that nature. So those three shift. Second home is the first time buying, primary, multifamily, and parent-child models.
Yeah, and it's what I love about this the most is that I'm a big proponent of get into real estate as early as you can. So I bought my first place, I think I was 24, bought a first really small apartment in New York City, and that rolled into the next one, and that appreciated rolled into the next one, and you realize just the longer you're in real estate, the better you do. The coin term, which is a little cheesy, but don't wait to buy real estate and wait. I've been a beneficiary of that because I started early, and I want more people to be able to do that. And one of the biggest challenges we see, because we're talking to clients all the time, is if you're a young professional, pardon my French, how the hell do you save up for hundreds of thousands of dollars in post-tax money to be able to come up with a down payment, unless you're fortunate enough to have family help or a job that, you know, maybe pays you large lump sums and bonuses or RSUs or something like that. That whole segment of the market has just been left out. That's a huge segment of renters,
Right.
because they just can't save up for the down payment. And it's great to see that you guys are starting to solve that problem for people. And it's great to be part of it. And all these new loan programs that are coming out to try to facilitate that is really encouraging, because there's a lot of people that I think would really benefit from owning real estate that just either don't think they can do it, or, you know, or they can't raise enough money on their own. But with your co-buy model, where you're buying with other people, now it becomes accessible way earlier than it would otherwise. So
Totally. Yeah, you're taking years off and of the potential, you know, by going in. And you're also mitigating some of your risk, your downside risk. It's interesting because, you know, I think there's a lot of cultures, and we've talked about this before, Mark, where cooperative economics are actually embedded in the culture, and they actually don't see, especially if you're working with family and friends, that as a risk, which interestingly enough, sometimes the system sees as a risk, and we're all working to kind of change that, right? But actually as a benefit, right? And actually mitigating the risk. And that's a lot what we focus on, helping groups get alignment. We have a platform that helps them take any of the listings that they're seeing and does financial projections on them. We you know, have operating agreements and things like that that we support, and then give them access to third-party lawyers where they need it, and then of course introduce them to great lenders who can help them through the financing process, and then agents as well. So we kind of line them up for agents. I've talked to a lot of agents, and a lot of agents who, you know, totally well-meaning, and I was one of these groups too, but agents knew that groups fall apart a lot, right? And if you only have so much time in the day, like how much time do you want to spend with a group versus someone else? But now that groups are coming through Nestment, they know that, oh, they're pre-approved, oh, they've got their things together. Like, you know, I can kind of take this group and see it as another buyer. The other thing is it's creating net new buyers, right? So it's not like, it can sometimes feel like a zero-sum game, with real estate, that everyone's looking for this, you know, supply constrained, you know, situation here. But yeah, you know, we have now more buyers, and so that could create more supply constraints, but it also allows for more opportunities where there might not have been.
yeah, for sure. And it's just great to see a company that's supporting this effort, because like, I mean, I don't mean to sound dramatic, but like, you guys are changing lives, right? Financial lives at least, and being able to get people in, I mean, probably a decade before they'd be able to do it on their own potentially. You
Totally.
know,
I mean,
people who
that's the
aren't
hope. That,
fortunate to
that
have
makes me
family
smile,
members.
Mark. I
Well,
really appreciate that. I feel like that's been, you know, we kind of officially launched with our first beta group with Built Rewards, which was a great partner of ours, because, you know, they help folks who are renting get points for their rent by paying with their Built card. And you know, 67% of their 500,000 customers said that they were looking to buy with friends, right? Because they didn't see any other potential way. And
right,
so we started off with just like a small, you know, we'll make 100 slots available. We're a small team, right? We had over 1,000 people sign up. We've taken over 600 within that just group, taken over 600 discovery calls with folks, and have now gone through a number of transactions to, I think we'll do about, our pipeline's around 70 million in projected volume just with that one group. $0 of marketing, just one partner, one channel, and a couple emails, right? And so you realize that there's so much potential out there. And I think, to your point, the headlines about unaffordability, we're kind of rewriting that script, right? So it's about, you'll see these stories start to come out, but it's about, you know, for millennial friends who are able to buy their dream home on a golf course, and they're starting with that first for less than 5,000 down, right? Like that, you know,
right,
you worked with, or three sisters who are each supporting each other, buying a particular home in whichever city that they live in, but they're starting with one at a time, right? Or people who with non-tech salaries who can actually afford San Francisco, right? So
right.
so things like that, and just really excited to be on the front end of that.
Yeah, well, you guys are definitely at the forefront for sure. And I think your the way that you guys approach your fundraising is also something I think is really cool that I'd love for you to, I mean, share as much detail as you can, but just the general approach to it and the inclusive nature of it, I think people would enjoy hearing about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there was a few things that were important. I mean, we really want to kind of walk the talk, right? And so if we look at just so you guys have a sense of, so everyone has a sense of who's coming to us, it's 90% millennial Gen Z. There are some folks who are older as well, totally fine, right? Especially parents who might be buying with their kids. We have a couple I think you're working with one of our groups that's three generations there, and so which is pretty cool. But 84% are first-time homeowners, which is great. And then over 62% are professionals of color or first-gen immigrants, right? And so it was really important when we, raised our initial pre-seed round of funding that we bring in, a cap table that's reflective of that. Over 65, like we're close to 68% investors of color, evenly split actually between Black, Latino, and Asian. We made sure we brought in an interesting mix of everything from blockchain to focused on prop tech. A number of our funds, like Concrete Rose, give back 50% of the carry in the fund to the community and to work with them. So it's all been very intentional. We're doing a small raise right now because things are going well, and we're actually, rather than having to take too much money, we can take a little bit of money and get to that next milestone. And one of the things we're actively have been doing was ensuring that we make the cap table more gender balanced as well, because we have a lot of women making the financial decisions now. We have a lot of folks who are unmarried women, roommates, friends who are looking at real estate as financial freedom, and we want that to reflect on the cap table as well. So a really interesting mix of kind of backgrounds and diversity, as well as just backgrounds in terms of knowledge and things of that nature.
Yeah, well, it's so important for this to be open to all communities and to be accessible. And I think you guys are doing a great job there. And I wanted to, if you don't mind, touch on your personal story a little bit about what inspired you to start this company, because I know it's a personal story and one that really resonated with me. So tell us why you got started and
I
how.
mean, it's interesting because this is my third startup. First was very much market opportunity. It was in mobile technology. iPhone had just come out, and everything was kind of blowing up. And it's weird to think there was a time when we just thought it was a phone. Then second startup was more of a passion project funded by the New York Times called Woven, which was all around how groups collectively reimagine. But this one brings both market opportunity and passion together for me. I think this is probably one of the largest consumer opportunities that we'll see in the next decade, and there needs to be a brand that kind of leads the way in that sense. But it's also passion for me because I grew up here in the Bay Area in what they call the People's Republic of Berkeley across the way, and father passed when I was young. And my mom was an immigrant to the country, smart and scrappy, but didn't have a job. Hadn't been working for a little while, so hard to find a job. And so it was her and her two boys. And so we were trying to figure out what we would do so that we wouldn't have to leave our home, which meant a lot to us because we were close with my dad. And so I learned how to kind of help refinance and take some. We were fortunate to have a home. That's a privilege, right? That I think we need to make sure people have, right? Like this asset really helped us out in this meaningful time. Our life would have been a lot more erratic. So first we took out some equity. We had some capital now in the bank that we could live off of. And then we actually rented out rooms to UC Berkeley graduate students. So we kind of became property managers. So, Swedish physicists and Taiwanese architects, Nigerian math PhDs, whatever it might be, they were
Like a
sitting at
fun house.
people. Yeah, exactly. Outside of sharing bathrooms, it was definitely a fun time. And so, I think it always stuck with me. And then when I had some additional capital, and saw that the Bay Area was unaffordable for family and friends, I said, hey, how can how do we combine and start to build. And so started with, triplex in Oakland, and then grew from there. And whether it was vacation homes, or I live a Nestment life now. I have a building in Nob Hill where I live on one floor. It's owned with another family. We rent out units. So we definitely, live what we preach, I think, in a lot
Mhm.
of ways. And we've made a ton of mistakes along the way, but all of that was part of this learning. And I didn't know it would be a calling in this way, until, I realized, by throwing just a landing page up to see if people felt the same way. A lot of my friends were feeling that it was just too tough to buy, but if we just could put our resources together, it would work out. We threw out a landing page with my co-founder, who actually is a shift buyer. I joke, it's so unaffordable that he built a company just so he could own
And he
but
did it.
now through
He's the
Nestment.
one on the golf course.
Yeah, it's the one on the golf course with his buddies. Um, but yeah, we threw out a landing page and we just flighted some Instagram ads and LinkedIn to say, are other people feeling this way? And sure enough, we had this inbox full of people who said, how did you know I was talking about this? And so we realized we had to build something. But it does take a village, but I do think we have this really great opportunity. We find that there's so many people who come to us and say, you know, um, I've talked about this, but didn't know where to go. And then what's interesting is every person who's transacted now is bringing two or three groups of friends to say, hey, because there's this whole group outside of the group that's already talked about that didn't even know that this was a possibility. And when they find out, they're like, oh, we could do this too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a really cool thing to see in action from start to finish. We're often involved in the early stages all the way through the closing, and just to see like the excitement that people have about being able to do this, it's a really cool experience, and great to be part of it.
Oh,
I also want people to understand like what when we get a group of friends that are interested in wanting to buy. They say, okay, I want to do this. They come to you. What services are you providing? What information and data, and how do you kind of navigate them through that process?
yeah, so there's five areas of friction that we identified when we wanted to build, and obviously we'll refine and evolve, but the five areas were: one, group alignment. So when people come to us, they get access to a dashboard that has a list of steps, of the process. It has an area where they can pull in listings and look up properties and actually analyze the financials. So there was a bunch of data I couldn't afford when I was just co-buying on my own. So things like, you might still think, and no offense to Austin, but that Austin is a good place to buy if you look at historicals. But if you look at forward-looking appreciation, you know that a lot of it's built into the price, right? And so, there's just a lot of different things to look at. So how do we make that available in a UI? And then what does it mean for one person, two people, three people, four people? And how does that break down as a whole and by individual member? So taking that out of the equation. Also, we've compiled a bunch of different templates for operating agreements, and so that groups can go through the process. We saw that there was a huge kind of psychological burden. What does this mean? How are we going to figure this out? But once people went through something as simple as a decision tree of, like, in a Google form, right, that would create an agreement, then and I remember paying, 10 plus thousand for my first agreement because I didn't know what I was doing, right? And I just was
Right.
like,
Well, when you create it from scratch
when
for
you're
your
creating for
use, it's
exactly,
expensive.
the lawyer kindly obliged in this case.
Right. Of course.
I know that person. I still give him. I still joke with them. But
Little did you know you'd modify that one to create one for
right,
the masses.
exactly. And just, taking in these scenarios. And then obviously one of the first things we do too, if someone's serious, is introduce them to yourself, right? Or a lender, right? Because it's important, one, to demystify. Sometimes that feels like such a big step because, we have this stigmatism around our financial abilities and our information and things of that nature. And I think what we try to do is take that stigma out and say, hey, no, this is part of the process. Let's why don't you go and have a conversation, understand what you can afford, right? Then we can actually then start to narrow in on some of those properties, and then introduce you to a local agent in where they're looking.
Right.
Um, we
And
do
that
some
could
other
be
announcements.
anywhere, right? That could be
Yeah,
anywhere around
oh,
the
it could be
country.
anywhere. So this month we have groups in contract or closed: Florida, Um, hopefully Oregon coming up in a sec, and then uh, uh Philly, so Pennsylvania, California, and and I'm hoping Gainesville, but we'll see. So that's another Florida one. So yeah, I mean you're taking like 5 or 6 states, right? And people come in with different levels of knowledge. Sometimes they come in with their own lender, et cetera. Sometimes they come with their own agent. And we're here to support all of those scenarios. We're here to help out. So yeah, we want to get any group to buy any listing. There are some folks out there that might like buy a home and say, "Hey, I've fractionalized the home." That's fine, but what we've found is that we people really love the process of finding the right place, right? There's something
Sure.
really meaningful about that journey and search, and because we work with great lenders and great partner agents, we're here to kind of support and guide, but also not get in the way of the lender or the agent.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you guys do work directly with agents a lot. So a
Yeah.
lot of our network is real estate professionals. So maybe you can talk about how agents can get involved, either if they have groups of buyers that they know that they want to introduce to you, or vice versa. If you have groups in areas where you need a good agent to partner with,
Yeah,
how
totally.
would that work if you were an agent?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, if you're an agent, oftentimes groups do take up a lot of time and they sometimes don't result in anything, right? And because again, people have the idea, but they don't have the tools to execute. So you bring them to us and we help them through that process, make sure that they're aligned, they stay with you as the agent, and we're able to help them, close, right? So the majority of people we've pre-approved are either actively making offer. Not many are gone. Let's just say from the pipeline thus far. And then on the flip side, we'll be doing a bunch of marketing as well. But one of the things we see ourselves as is as a demand gen engine, like that understands, the co-buying, and also can kind of relate to hopefully millennials and Gen Z about what they're going through, right? So we get a whole bunch of people coming in, and we're able to then connect them to agents as well. Yeah. So I mean, and again, I'm talking about all over the U.S. right now, so it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know we've helped people in different corners of the country as well. So
Yep.
we've been seeing that firsthand.
Totally.
Um, so how does it work as far as like if a group comes to you, do they pay you for certain parts of the service? Like how do you guys charge consumers or partners?
Yeah, we currently don't charge consumers. We support consumers through the process. We work with the agents on a commission, and we do that because it takes a lot of time and energy. We don't charge lenders. Obviously, there's certain guidelines around that. So we ask that the lenders, pass on kind of their savings and good work, which I know NJ Lenders does to our groups, and they benefit from that. And Yeah, and then so most of the revenue, we do have insurance, we have CPA connection, we have a CPA group, we're adding in title and a few other things too that will help generate revenue. But we oftentimes work with agents on a rev share of the buying agent's fee. And it works out well again because of all the additional kind of heavy lifting. And we're building out a platform too that allows groups to actually manage the property too. We've been so inundated with just getting people through the transaction process that haven't had as much time, but now we have a whole set of requirements of what will need to be in that platform. A marketplace. My wife's an interior designer. Shout out to Studio Heimat. But I was like, wait, we could just load your trade discount in here, and then people would get a discount on furniture that they purchased and things of that nature, right? So like, how
Yeah.
can we kind of have a SaaS hub and a marketplace that enables that, and then helping that group through to the ultimate point of even exiting their share. So there's a bigger kind of financialization that's coming. But right now we work very closely with the agents and a few of our providers.
Yeah, and it's great for agents too because you're potentially bringing them business out of nowhere, right? A
Yeah.
lot of agents buy leads through Zillow or some of these other sites that turn into basically nothing.
Yeah.
and you're potentially introducing them for a rev share of some sort. And we don't need to get into details on that.
Well,
That's between
we
you.
don't get paid unless they convert, right? So you're not
Right,
getting anything from us, right?
right.
Bring them to you.
Yeah,
So
it's a great model because I know agents do they're accustomed to paying for leads or buying leads or paying Zillow for, to be on a website or something like that. And this is a great, new approach that's probably far less crowded also.
yeah,
Uh,
no,
so
we're kind of making a bet on on this kind of massive demographic kind of that change and economic change, and so we think we can kind of gather that and and we're able to do it at a good margin because we have great lenders and great agents like yourself and the agents we work with who all buy in. So it's interesting because in some ways the co-buying effort takes a community, right, of people
sure.
and obviously we're trying to make it as efficient and effective and fair as possible.
Yeah, and you guys also, I know because I've seen it firsthand, you guys help people with a lot of the important decisions. Like you mentioned that in certain cultures, it feels less risky to to co-purchase or co-own something, whether it be real estate or anything else. And the sort of like standard American way of thinking of things is that, oh, it's risky. If you meddle finances with each other, it's risky, but you guys have done a great job of like creating operating agreements, which I've seen that kind of help people navigate the decisions. Like, what if one person wants to sell and the other one doesn't? Like, that would be the concern that, people would think of naturally. Like,
Totally.
am I stuck in this investment? And you guys have done a great job of helping people as a group make those decisions and put it into their agreements.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we want to empower people. Ultimately, nothing we do is should be investment advice or taken as that. But what we do know from the beginning of our conversation is that those that have invested in real estate and have been empowered with the right information or the right connections or whatever it might be, have really been able to build generational wealth. So how do we kind of even that playing field by allowing folks to kind of find a found money, right? Which is really your community and the people and all gain with each other. And for that, you need good information, so good data. And then you also need kind of good guidelines and rules of the road. So we try to provide all of those things. And then, I mean, the other thing is just eventually being a third party, even for the management process too, right? Like there will inherently always be some level of emotional connection when it's friends and family. If we can help take that out of the process, so it's like, hey, this is really about financial enablement and building something and being able to amplify the positive sides and mitigate the downside risks. That's kind of why we exist.
Sure. Well, if people are pooling their money and they're able to buy a decade earlier, even if
Yep.
there are some risks, it's a calculated risk. It's usually with people right? You're not, most
Yep.
of the groups are not people that are unfamiliar with each other that didn't, grow up together, do
Yep.
sleepovers at each other's houses when they were kids, or they're related, or like they have a deep connection and a level of trust with people that aren't going to try to most likely steal money from them or anything like that. So
Totally.
I think that really helps as well. Just the familiarity. But there's an argument to be made that you're right. You're absolutely right that this actually mitigates the risk because you have less money in each investment. Let's just say, you're sharing it. So and everybody has a reason to make sure that everything goes well, right? Because it's
Totally.
collective, but you're starting that process. I keep coming back to this. You're just starting it so much earlier for people. And so, yeah, even if you did perceive that there was some risk, the reward is so great that even if things didn't go absolutely perfectly over the course of a 10-year ownership, you still got in, you own the property for 10 years. And no one, I don't care what market you're in, up, down, sideways, if you look back 10 years and you had bought 10 years prior, you would have done better than you did if you bought now. And that doesn't matter where the market's moving. It's just
Oh,
the
I
beauty of real
completely,
estate over
I
time.
completely agree. And I think also then you have the chance to not only be better off, but you also have the chance to potentially, and we see this with groups, they're starting to build portfolios together. They're starting to build a life that they want where, hey, we can own in the city a multifamily, but also own a vacation rental that we go to in the snow or by the water or something like that, right? So all of a sudden, when you like, if you take the fact that if you know, divide it by three, right? And now you own three homes together, right?
Right.
So, over a period of time. So,
Right. And on the commercial side, it's called syndication.
yep,
Right?
yep,
Very common where people pool money together and as a group are, with a manager who manages it, they're acquiring some piece of real estate. This is basically syndication on a smaller level with residential properties that historically this hasn't been a thing.
right.
So you guys are really at the forefront of that, and it's really great to see it in action. It's really, rewarding, to be honest, to see these people that are just like felt like they were going to be left out of this as even a remote possibility, and then the next thing they know, they own a home, and just the pride that they feel in that, and and just accomplishing something that they weren't sure that they could accomplish, and then they do it, and it's really really cool to see. So you guys are
Totally.
doing good stuff, man. You're saving the world.
Well,
What a
well,
group of
thank
good time.
you. Glad to have partners like you, Mark.
Yeah, well, you guys are great. We enjoy working with you as well. And I just wanted to make sure our network knows that this exists. Like that's the most critical thing. If you're a buyer and you're, frustrated because you can't compete because you don't have enough capital to give enough of a down payment, maybe you collaborate with others to do it together. Or you're an agent who wants to boost their opportunities for business, and you're in an area that co-buyers are commonly looking for. Like it's just something people need to know about. So that's why we're here on the podcast today, and I wanted to make sure you and I had a chance to talk and get word out there together, because I think it's an important thing that you guys are doing. And you're on such a great path, and again, we appreciate being part of it, but this is really all you guys, and I just wanted to share what you do with our network. So thank you so much for joining me
Yeah,
today.
well, thank you, Mark, for giving us the opportunity and the platform. And then if anyone wants to reach out, you can reach me directly, niles@nestment.com. I'm always happy in here for a conversation. So
Absolutely. Well, you guys are very accessible. That's the beauty of startups, right? Someday when there's 10 layers of management, you might
Uh,
regret giving out that email address.
yeah, yeah, I don't think it'll change. So
Right, right. But by then we'll be meeting in virtual worlds, probably less
there you
than
go. You'll be
than a
meeting my
podcast.
AI
But
doppelganger.
exactly, exactly. But thank you, Niles, so much. And
Awesome.
again, nestment.com is the website if you guys want to check it out, or you can email Niles directly. And we'll be posting this as well to try to get more people your way. But I appreciate you taking the time today, Niles. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Mark. Appreciate
All
you.
right. Take care.